this is a video my brother wanted me to make, just kind of giving my thoughts on the current WWE. To do that, I guess I could go back a little bit and not talk about like when I started being a fan, and all that, because I've been watching WWE when it was WWF since the early 90s, so that's my history with it. But over the past, I don't know how many years, from where the last time Vince was completely in charge, for 10, 15 years, people were saying, it's going downhill, Vince is out of touch. And I would be, defending them because, I wanted WWF, WWE, whatever it's called these days, to succeed. So I would always be like, oh, it's not as bad as you people are saying, I was basically fooling myself. It's only now that I can admit that especially the last 10 years under Vince, were just absolutely rotten. Like, he was so out of touch, knew nothing about, what current fans want, even past fans, like me. I was just watching it basically out of routine, and they had the network, so I didn't have to pay for each pay-per-view, so it wasn't like I was out, I was going to watch the network anyway, for $10 a month, I watched the current pay-per-views, and I had cable, so I was able to keep up with Raw and SmackDown. But it was just, I was just watching it just basically by routine. But during the, under the, well, I guess they call it the Triple H era, or whatever it's called, after they got bought by TKO, there's been a ton of good things that I've liked. But there's also a few things that I think could be better, and some things I don't like at all. I don't know where to start. I guess the good thing is just there's been a lot of unpredictability, a lot of things you thought you'd never see. Like, I know a lot of people crap all over the John Cena heel turn. I actually liked it, and I'm right there with them as far as, like, The Rock should have had something to do with WrestleMania. Nobody wants to see that idiot Travis Scott wannabe rapper, could never be wrestler. That stupid theme song to play during WrestleMania annoyed the crap out of me, leading up to it and during the whole freaking show. Anyway, yeah, I think The Rock should have been there. It was crap by him to not show up, but it's The Rock. He's completely self-centered. I've always thought that. But I've actually liked the John Cena heel turn. A lot of people are like, oh, the explanation made no sense. It makes perfect sense if you think about it, Someone like Cena, he'd been booed for years and years. People were merciless with it, and I was not one of those people. I was one of the people that were annoyed that people, like, legitimately seemed to hate. Not just, there was the segment of fans online that seemed to, like, actively hate John Cena and wish that he was out of wrestling. Not just always pushing down our throat, but just, like, legitimately hated the guy. So his complete, his turn actually, and the way he's explained it, has made sense. And of course, this past week with that pipe bomb promo that he did on CM Punk, everybody's like, oh, that was good, I'm starting to like this now. So maybe it'll turn around, hopefully. What they said, they tried to make it seem like they pivoted, and that was they weren't going to do that. I don't know for sure whether this heel turn was planned or what, but just the fact that if they did pivot, that shows that they actually do something like that. They used to never do that. They would stick with Vince's plan. Vince has the ultimate plan, and they're never going to change no matter what fans say. And I used to be one of the ones like, oh, shut up, they're going to do what they want. You idiots are just running your mouths. You don't even watch it anyway. But now I'm more of the mind of, I realize that some of the criticism was right. Not all of it. The so-called IWC, Internet Wrestling Community, has always been a toxic place. I try not to do too much commenting online because I don't want to be feed into any of that. But I actually like that, and the John Cena turn, and I like the way that things are actually going as far as, like, with stories and stuff. You're getting stuff the last few years. You never thought you'd see Cody Rhodes back and become a huge star here. Definitely never thought you'd see a CM Punk come back. Just some of the stuff they're doing, and I get to watch more Raw than SmackDown because I have Netflix. I don't have cable, so SmackDown is and I'm hardly ever home on Fridays because I'm going to my own wrestling shows that not my shows, but I'm on the shows doing I'm not on the shows either. You know what I mean. I sit there and play music and go blah, 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 blah on the microphone. Anyway, I'm never home to see SmackDown. Like I said, I don't have cable, so I find other ways to watch it live when I can. But most of the time, my SmackDown is just limited to the highlights they show. And they don't even show, like, the highlights of, like, every match. They can show 2 seconds of the matches, but they don't. So I gotta either, you know, watch their crappily put together 15 minutes of highlights on YouTube and, you know, look up the results, and even that don't even give you everything. But anyway, so I'm more familiar with, you know, with more of the Raw storylines and the SmackDown ones. But I like the way things are going, like as far as like all the stories and all the matches and everything. A lot of people are like, oh, see, people will complain about everything. They used to complain, there's too many matches, you know, they don't have enough time to, you know, they got only a couple minutes. Now they have the shows where some, like I think there's been a couple pay-per-views or premium live events as they're called now, where they've only had 4 or 5 matches and they last a long time. People are like, oh, that's too long of a match, there's not enough matches. It's like, you can't please everybody. No matter what you do, somebody's gonna complain about something, and it's gonna be completely ridiculous. So, you know, Triple H has announced, you know, that he's not writing for the internet people. You know, he's writing for who he believes are the fans, and I believe that to be the case. You know, because like I said, you can't please everybody. There's always going to be somebody mad about some decision. I definitely something like some other things I like you know, definitely some competitive matches. I think that you know, what they've been doing with the women's division, obviously nothing new. It's the last 10 years or so has been tremendous. I believe they're trying to put an emphasis on tag team wrestling. It's hard to do sometimes with, you know, without seeming contrived. Like, you know, a personal matter between 2 people is a lot easier for people to believe than like tag team personal matters. You know, they can be done right. You know, we've seen that a lot in the past. But, you know, I think the singles wrestling is always going to be their big focus. Some things I do not like. I do not like those stupid press conferences after. It's too, I don't even know how to say it. You know, we're all supposed to believe in the show when we watch it. Even those in the business that watch it, you know, can get lost in the show. You know, it always goes through my mind, like if somebody loses, like, oh, I wonder if he made somebody mad because he should have won that match, or, you know, that type of thing. But there's always, you know, you watch the show, it's like watching a movie. You watch a movie, you know, if you watch a DVD, sometimes you'll listen to the commentary of a movie, okay? But normally you don't listen to the commentary the first time you view the movie. That would be stupid because for one, you can't hear the movie, but 2, you just want to watch the movie and enjoy it. I want to watch a pay-per-view and enjoy it, and then afterwards not be like, okay, we're gonna come in. Yeah, I did it. The Rock was real freaking bad at this whenever he was doing the stupid press conferences. But, you know, somebody's gonna go out there and he's gonna beat the crap out of somebody, and then you're not gonna come out, you know, I hate this person. You're not gonna come out and say, yeah, we worked pretty well together. We played that match out well. Right after the freaking event, I mean, pretty much on the same feed. It's still going on the live feed. You know, it'd be like watching a movie, and then while you're doing it, the actors are like at the bottom of the screen talking, saying, you know, some actors are like a shootout, like, yeah, we were shooting each other here, you know, the director yelled cut. You know, it was just that type of stupid crap. Like we all get it's a show, and we all like to have that inside information, but I guarantee you half the stuff they're telling you at the press conference isn't really inside information. It's the inside information they want you to see. And I know they got that show coming out where they go into the writer's room, and in a way it's kind of like, you know, a cool thing to see as a fan, but at the same time it's like, how much inside are they going to go, and how much of the current stuff are they going to show? You know, I mean, are we going to see this, like with the stuff with Seth Rollins and CM Punk? Are we going to find out, you know, obviously that is something that everybody believes in, that they really don't like each other. Are we going to see in this writer's room to find out that they're just best buddies now, and, you know, that'll be like, okay, well, we invested in this so much because we thought, yeah, they're professional working together, obviously, but is there some kind of something going on to where, you know, they still like don't really like each other or trust each other, and then find out with this show that, oh no, they're best friends, it's just a show, you know. As they call it, too inside baseball for me. They really should definitely, if they're gonna do the press conference thing, which I think is just stupid. It started with the AEW crap, which, by the way, I do not like that freaking company. I've tried to watch them. Nothing about it is good. I hate it all. I am fully on board, and not just because I like watching Jim Cornette, but I'm fully on board with everything he says about them. They are the absolute drizzling freaking, I'm trying not to cuss, but the S word. Anyway, that's where that press conference crap started. So I wish they would do away with the press conferences at WWE, but if they're going to do them, don't do it right after the event or something. I mean, I know that's when you have a press conference, but is that hard to do it in character? Probably because the mainstream media won't follow it if it's in character. I know that. We're in a different time. We're not back in the old days where everything's so protected, but there was a lot of good things about those days. But one of the biggest things I do not like is what they're doing with the ticket prices. You know, they're owned by TKO now, and which really kind of worries me, because even though as crappy as Vince was running it, at least when he was running it, you know, because I always thought, you know, nobody's gonna own it but Vince. You know, it's, you know, and we all know what the crap that Vince did, and he doesn't need to be involved in wrestling at all, and should probably be in jail. But I wish that it would have stayed with the family or something, because now it's owned by this company, and who knows, they may sell it to somebody, and they may just decide to shut it down, take all the stuff off the air. You know, I know we have YouTube and the DVDs they let us have because they stopped making DVDs, which is another thing that sucks. But I hate that it's, you know, not owned by the family, because they own so much of wrestling's history, like all the WCW and the ECW stuff, you know. A lot, not all the NWA stuff, but a lot of that stuff, the Jim Crockett promotions, some of the other smaller territories that they ended up buying, either by buying WCW or just purchasing them. I think they own all the AWA stuff. Actually, I do know they do own the AWA stuff. But anyway, I don't like what they're doing with the ticket prices. The astronomical prices for WrestleMania and the pay-per-views, but also Raw and SmackDowns are just so overpriced now that it's hard for families with not much money to be able to go. I just got done filming my Tales from the 90s episode where I was talking about Super Nintendo. I'd only actually owned a Super Nintendo as an adult, and then I sold it to buy tickets for me and my brother Josh, who actually asked me to make this episode. I sold the tickets so I sold the Super Nintendo so me and Josh could get tickets to go to our very first Raw, and it was like $16. It was a nosebleed section, but still we could see just fine, and it was a great night. And you know, for $16, I'd hate to see what those prices are now. Probably $70 for an obstructed view seat. They're pricing families out of it, and the thing is, though, is they're getting sellouts, so it's working still, but a lot of this has become like status type stuff where people are in the crowd just to say, look, I'm here, you know, especially with WrestleMania and some of the pay-per-views. You know, if the celebrities aren't buying the tickets, they're being provided them, but you know, it's become like a thing, like, be seen here, more than, you know, die-hard fans wanting to see it, because the die-hard fans normally can't afford the tickets unless, you know, they're that green shirt guy and all those, you know, ones that can afford every event, or given the tickets, one of the two, I don't know which. But I really wish that they would have some seats that were priced for families, you know, that are struggling, because this is a struggling economy. It don't matter who the president is, what your political beliefs, whatever, whether you call it depression, recession, or whatever the freak, this is a struggling economy, and it's hard to get tickets to these things, and I can't get tickets to them, and I'd love to go. I haven't been to see a wrestling event since 2009, I think. Or, yeah, that was the last one I went to. I went to see, who did I go with? Did I go to, I can't remember. No, the last one I went to was with my wife. It was like 2008. We went to SmackDown, and that was a fun trip, you know. But that's, you know, going to Cincinnati and all that, and you know, the tickets, and it still was affordable, and we weren't anywhere near rich, still not. But just they make it too unaffordable. I don't like that at all. Another thing I don't like is the video games. The quality of the games suck. They keep changing the layout of the controls. It's just unplayable to me anymore. I wish they would have kept the format they had when they had like the SmackDown versus Raw games. You know, especially the SmackDown Here Comes the Pain and the very first Raw versus SmackDown. The controller of that was good. I know that's video games. It's not really the company itself, but there's a lot that I like going on. Like I said, I'm trying to show the good and the parts I don't like. Some wrestlers I just do not like. The freaking Aleister Black. I've never could stand him. I found him to be so annoying. Literally, I will be on my phone when his match is on, or I'll go to the bathroom. Sort of like a Big Vito match in WCW or WWE when he was wearing the dress. Bathroom break match. But anyway, enough about that idiot. I talked about him last week. But yeah, I don't like him at all. He annoys me. I don't know. It's just something about him. It just seems so fake. Like, oh, it's the dark wrestler. I found it funny that I actually got to watch SmackDown this last week. He didn't even get to have his match because R-Truth came out. And that was the thing that started annoying me about him was during his last time before he went to AEW. The stupid thing where he'd sit in the room, a little broom closet, like, knock on my door, and he was just sitting there every week talking blah 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 nonsense. Anyway, I like Jey Uso. I think the Yeet stuff is starting to get overdone, with Pat McAfee going nuts with it, and then the announcers on SmackDown doing it. Like, I think that if they do it too much more, it's gonna get overplayed. People are already hating on him, and I don't see why they hate. You know, he's definitely a huge star. It's just be careful as far as how much you lean into like the catchphrases and stuff. You know, he famously had that bad match with his brother at last WrestleMania, and I don't like the way he won the title from Gunther. Like Gunther tapped out like almost immediately. It doesn't seem like something his character would do. You know, even if he didn't pass out, have him there a long time before he taps out. But speaking of Gunther, if they're doing what's rumored, and I know all the rumors are never always true, but if Goldberg's coming back to face him at Saturday night's main event. If Goldberg wins the title, that's a horrible decision. And I'm not saying Goldberg should even win. They shouldn't have made it for the title. But I think if they did that, they would telegraph that Goldberg's for sure winning. But at the same time, I'm so over Goldberg. His egotistical crap. I was over it during his first WWE run back in 2003. You know, I liked him for, you know, a period of time in WCW. I'm not saying like, oh, he was okay. He was a huge star, even though he couldn't do nothing. But he's just, and this, you know, and I actually liked whenever he came in to face Brock Lesnar. It was like 30-second matches. You know, that's all those two need to face each other. Did you see WrestleMania 20 and that stink fest? But, you know, Goldberg just, and for what I can get for myself, and I don't care who else gets injured or whether the match looks crappy, as long as I get my money and my glory. One of those, the Hulk Hogan of today, well, he's not even of today. Don't even get me started on that lying, racist piece of trash. I cannot stand Hulk Hogan. Ugh. Anyway. It has nothing to do with political stuff where you people like, oh, you don't like Trump or you don't like this. It has nothing to do with his political stuff. It's all about stuff he said in the past, and mostly all just based on his countless, endless, 9,000 freaking lies about everything. Oh, I wrestled 400 times a year because I crossed the date line, and oh, this kid with cancer was over there when I main evented Wembley Stadium, which I never even wrestled in. And then talked about how bad the kid stunk. Like, well, that's nice. Anyway, he's not wrestling anymore, so I ain't talking about that idiot. But obviously, I like the stuff with the Seth Rollins going on now with that group he's building up with Paul Heyman. But one of the things I hate is the stupid, like, I get the fans sing along stuff and all that. these days that they have, and that's fine. But the fact that, like, he's a heel and he's still getting cheered with the music, but then, you know, and Paul Heyman still it's like, it's not even the company's fault. It's the fans. Like, that's probably the last thing I want to talk about on here, is the fans that go to these shows. They piss me off more than the internet fans. Like, during the, like, a prime example of that, the Becky Lynch, oh god, I can't think of her name now. Lyra Valkyria. I couldn't think of her name. I was like, I'm gonna mess this up, but I actually said it right, I think. During their feud, the fans are all over Becky Lynch because, you know, she's coming back, taking another spot, blah 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 blah. But then she turns on Lyra and it's like, ooh, a babyface turned heel. We like that. So now all of a sudden we like you one more time. Like, she was like attacking her, like beating the crap out of her, and they say one more time to somebody that they were just cheering the crap out of. It's like, you turn on people that quick. And like the singing along with Seth's song, and he's supposed to be a heel. Like, if I were them, I would change that song immediately. It would piss the fans off, for one. They don't get to sing the song anymore. Make it something they can't sing, or even change it each week, or have no music even. That's been done before, but, you know, don't, you know, they're trying to get him over as this like super heel, and he's like leading the singing. Like I get it's part of his egotistical character, but you should be trying to get everything you can to get booed. In this day and age, it's hard for fans to freaking boo people that need to be booed because they're always cheering them. And they're booing the people that should be cheered. They hijack the shows, try to make it all about themselves with their stupid chants. And I'm not even talking about like the foreign crowds, you know, they hardly get shows over there anymore. So yeah, and that's what they do during, you know, soccer events and all kinds of events. That's kind of their thing. But over here, come on, you see the show every week. Quit trying to take over the show. Watch the freaking show. If I was there, it would annoy the crap out of me. But like I said, I think Triple H is doing a good job with it. There's definitely some ways that can be improved, but, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm just, you know, as far as like the titles, I don't know. It's hard to say that there's too many titles because, you know, they introduced the two women's secondary titles, and I don't think they've gotten like to where the point where it seems like there's too many there, because, you know, there's not as many women as men. They're getting more, obviously, than there used to be, but I believe those titles are necessary. I believe they're trying to make the titles important. It's just like it's still hard to, when you have the World Heavyweight title and the WWE Undisputed title, I guess they're supposed to be looked at on the same level, but it's hard to look at the World Heavyweight title as the same level when you've been told forever the WWE Championship, and it's the Undisputed Championship at that, is the #1 title. And it's like, I don't know, it's always been weird to me to have two world champions in one company. But I guess the fact that they have two different shows, you know, does make it a little bit better. I wish that there's always seems to be, you know, going to this show and that show, and they're not supposed to be doing that, but now they're doing that. Now they got the transfer portal, or, you know, it's just like, you know, either have them all on one or separate them. I prefer the separated version. It's distinct ones, and I wish they would go back to when they originally did the brand split, when they had each show had its own pay-per-view. I really enjoyed that, you know. But of course, you do that, you're not gonna get, you know, this person on this. But if you look at pay-per-views today, you don't always get the huge names every pay-per-view anymore. You know, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Like, what was the last one? On Money in the Bank, they had the two champions involved in the main event, but there's been events where they haven't even had one of the main champions on the show. And of course, they have the Saturday night's main events now, which, you know, and so pay-per-views I know are not as big. PLEs, whatever, aren't as big as they used to be, as far as the big event at the end of the month, or not always the end of the month, but you know what I mean, like where they either blow off a story or start a new one because people were paying, you know, $20, $30, then $45, $50 for the things. Now they're included in Peacock with a whole bunch of other stuff, or Netflix if you're overseas, I guess is where they're shown now, because they took the network completely away, which I love the WWE network. That's one thing I'm gonna get into after I talk about this, but they're not as, put as much focus on them. They probably put more focus on Raw and SmackDown, where they're, they want to make sure they keep Netflix and USA happy, than they are with the Peacock shows, which people are going to watch anyway, and they're all lumped in there anyway with all the other stuff. Peacock could care less whether you watch a premium live event or you watch an old episode of WCW Saturday Night, as long as you're paying them the monthly fee. But so they don't put as much emphasis on those, like, which I think is a good thing, because they're, you're spreading the big matches around between Raw, SmackDown, the specials like Saturday night's main events, the PLEs. You're spreading it around. But it's just as long as they keep WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Royal Rumble and Survivor Series, big focused events, and I think they're doing that. I hate the fact that they're doing SummerSlam the 2 nights. WrestleMania I've kind of gotten used to, but I hate that they're doing that with, like, what are we going to see in the future? We're going to see, like, I don't know, Money in the Bank be 2 nights. We're going to see, like, generic shows like that, like Night of Champions be 2 nights. Anyway, that's another one there. Night of Champions coming up in Saudi Arabia. That is the dumbest crap ever that Vince ever signed a deal with them, and I know it made them a fortune, but especially with everything going on in the world right now, do we really want a bunch of American citizens over in that region? And I know Saudi Arabia is not involved in the current conflict, and I don't even know where they stand at. I'm not trying to be all political, but if something happens, man, I'm not gonna be the first one to say it, but not, I told you so. But hopefully nothing like that happens, because what a tragedy that would be, and completely could have been avoided. But they got a contract and they're gonna fulfill it, because with TKO we've seen with the ticket prices that money is more important than anything else. I'm glad that I'm actually enjoying the product, because if not for that fact, this would be a very bad company to watch, because if they weren't putting out a good product, there certainly would be nothing to watch, because they don't care about the fans as far as ticket prices and selling out to the highest bidder, it seems. And I don't really have that bad of opinion of all the ads on the everything. It's the way the world is these days. The thing that annoys me, though, is the Slim Jim thing on the table. I find it more funny than anything, really, than annoy. I'm waiting for the cage to be sponsored. Just start sponsoring everything. Like, just have a drone fly in with a banner every once in a while, or have chairs sponsored, kendo sticks, the stairs, just everything. Sponsor it all. But anyway, back to the stuff with the network. I missed the WWE network because Peacock is annoying, okay? The biggest annoyance I have with them is the fact that, first of all, I should say I'm annoyed with the company that all their PLEs are now on Saturday. The only ones they have on Sunday are NXT, and I don't even watch NXT because I don't have time for it. I barely have time for Raw and SmackDown. So I watch those when I can, and the main WWE product. But anyway, the PLEs being on Saturday, I have wrestling Saturday nights, so I can't watch them. And when they have WrestleMania this year, I took off for that Saturday. I'm gonna do it again next year, not for the SummerSlam 2-day thing, but I'm gonna take off next year because I'm not missing WrestleMania either year. Since I started the 2-day stuff, I've had to miss all the Saturdays. But the biggest reason for that is on the network, it don't matter. The event could be going on for 4 hours, and you go to watch it. You can start it right from the beginning. You can fast forward to where they're at in it, or rewind anywhere that they've already shown, obviously. You can't rewind future, you know what I mean. On Peacock, you can't do that. maybe an hour or two into it, but after that, which I normally get home 10 or 11 at night, and the event's been on 2 or 3 hours, I can't start from the beginning. You don't offer that option, Peacock. I mean, that's like the WWE Network. Something. I think the team that originally did the MLB Network, the At Bat, or whatever it's called. I don't know if they're still involved with that, but they're the ones that created the network to begin with. And they're not nowhere near as resources as NBC and Peacock. So you're telling me you can't get a feature to where you start a live event from the very beginning and watch it? No, you have to wait for the replay. But since they do these stupid press conferences, and it counts as the same feed, and that drags on, sometimes I'm waiting almost, no exaggeration, till almost 1 in the morning to start an event, and I can't even watch the whole thing. If I could start it when I got home, I could get it done before bed. But no, sometimes because I gotta get up early for church, and then by the time I come, sometimes I don't finish a WWE pay-per-view until Sunday afternoon when it starts at Saturday night. That's completely ridiculous and stupid. And another thing, I'm not trying to get on a rant here, but ever since Netflix got Raw and they moved Raw to Netflix, they didn't really move Raw to Netflix. They put select Raws on there. You can't watch all of them. Like, why in the world can we not watch every single episode of Raw? They were all just on Peacock. They're all digital ready. Some of them moved over there. They could easily do it, but no. Can't go back and watch every Raw. I mean, the fact that it sucks that you have to go to 2 streaming services if you were wanting to watch, which is what I've been doing. I've been watching the first few episodes of Nitro and then Raw, and then just kind of like watching through a week of wrestling, just going back and relive that time. Can't do it anymore because I can't watch the Raws. So stupid. But yeah, like I said, I wish that you could at least start from the beginning on Peacock, and I wish Netflix would get their crap together and put Raw on there. I don't know what the holdup is. They're not on Peacock anymore, so obviously Netflix owns the rights to it. They're just being stupid. They're probably going to charge extra for that, like they do everything else. They raise their price every 2 seconds. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of my view on wrestling. I guess, I'm enjoying most of the stories. I don't think there's any story that's going on that I like completely annoys me or I don't like, really. Trying to think of any. I do think the freaking what's his name, Penta, is becoming very reckless in the ring. I seen that a few weeks ago where he almost completely snapped Chad Gable's neck. Was ridiculous. Trying that move with like a guy on his back and then doing like this. I forget what he was even trying to do to Chad Gable. I believe there's a lot of risks that are being taken on every show that don't need to be taken. Normally that stuff's supposed to be saved up for special events. Well, I guess with every show being a special event nowadays, but way too many risks being taken for no reason. You don't need all that. As you see with some of the other matches, the storytelling is good enough. The stuff with Dominic Mysterio, you don't think of him as like a high flyer, and he's entertaining as hell. Never thought he would be, but he's entertaining as hell. I'm enjoying the stuff with the CM Punk. He looks like he's having fun, which is good. You always got that worry in the back of your mind, like, is the relationship going to go south? I always hope not, but it also leaves it like intriguing to watch too, because they could easily pull that switch where he acts like he's just pissed off at the company, and do a worked shoot to where it looks like he's running the company down, but really it's just working the fans, and everybody would buy into it because of the past. I think that would be a good way to go in the future. But like I said, I love this stuff with Cena. I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. A lot of people don't like it. I do. The stuff with R-Truth, like, they wanted him back, and that was a huge story, and he finally comes back and seems to not turn heel, but have an edge where he's turned off the comedy. But then he's like laughing and joking with like Damian Priest this last week on SmackDown, and then they put him in that match with Cena, and it's like doesn't go very far, and he's not even the main character in it. Like, is he gonna fully snap, or he snaps on everybody, or did they just bring him back to please the fans for a couple weeks, and now go back to catering, and we'll bring you back, and you'll be a goof for another year and then we'll fire you again. Like, I don't know. I'm hoping it's leading to somewhere. I don't want to jump ahead too soon and be like, oh, they've already ruined R-Truth. And they, when they had this monster run they could have done. But anyway, hopefully Sami Zayn gets his first world title soon. Love that guy. Let's see, like I said, it's hard to judge some of the SmackDown people because I don't get to watch it enough. But from what I've seen, there's some good stuff going on. I like the Chelsea Green and the Secret Hervis. That stuff's hilarious. Like, she's hilarious. Tiffany Stratton, I really don't care for. She's not learned how to become a babyface. She does nothing but be a heel. And I get not everybody has, she don't have to turn and be like, hi fans, I love you, just because she turned into it. My dog came over. Are you a fan, Tiny? Just because she's a face now, she doesn't have to completely change her personality, but she still just acts like stuck up, and the way people accuse Charlotte Flair of being, but I don't know. It's just something about her rubs me the wrong way. I'm glad Alexa Bliss is back. She's one of my favorites. Of course, everybody loves Rhea Ripley. I can't say enough about her. Like, everything she's involved. Liv Morgan, too. It sucks that she got a separated shoulder. I haven't even watched that episode yet, but it sucks. I guess she was going to do something with Nikki Bella. It would have been good for her career, but kind of glad we don't get to see. Although I guarantee we'll still end up having to see Nikki Bella come back and wrestle again. Yay. But anyway, I don't know what else to really say. Like I said, I like the way that the stories are going. I wish the corporate stuff, I wish they would cater to the fans more. Think about struggling fans and think about, like, the Peacock stuff. I don't think they have a control with. I think that's all NBC not letting you start an event from the beginning once it gets past a certain point. But just, keep in mind that not everybody that watches you has the money. And like I said, it's working now, so there's no reason they're going to change it. The only way it's going to change is if the economy gets really bad, which I don't want to happen, just to change wrestling. But the economy's going to have to get really bad, and people are not going to be going to the shows in order to get them to change that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll see enough feedback and they'll be like, we're going to start giving some lower price seats, because wrestling's always been about fans and the family. Even during the Attitude Era, kids aren't going to be able to go to wrestling without their parents bringing them. They might drop them off. You know what I mean. Usually, if the kid's going to be there, it's going to be with their family, and it's hard to buy tickets for a family. Especially if you wanted to. I can't imagine what it'd be like to have to sit front row and to pay those prices. Ridiculous. Anyway, like I said, this has been a long rambling. What we got? 39 minutes? Jeez. Sorry for this one. I get talking about anything and I just get blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that's my current, state of the WWE. I like the way it's going. I wish the corporate stuff would change. I guess one final thing I can talk about is I hate the fact that The Rock's involved, just because I can't stand him. And I'm afraid that because of the power he has being on the board, that he could actually ruin storylines just if he wanted to, or if enough people like me get on here and complain about him, and like, well, I'm going to do this now. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully because you never know with The Rock whether it's a character or not. He'll be talking like he's talking about his actual self, but seeming also at the same time like he's being a heel. Like, is he really that bad of a person in real life, or is he that good at blending it? Maybe I'm being completely worked there. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thanks, Josh. Blame my brother, Josh, or thank him for this 40-minute video of my rambling thoughts on the WWE. I'll see you next time on something or other.